Yeah, Prashant, go ahead with your question. Hello? Yes, yeah, Malik, it's echoing and just quite a moment. Yeah, can you just type in your question, Prashant? Like, it's actually your voice is echoing. I don't know. I mean, if it is breaking out, can you use your microphone and speak, or there is some problem in understanding your voice? I mean, your voice. So you're talking about the session, yeah. So yeah, you want to record the session? Okay, yeah. So to record the sessions, there is when you open your GoToMeeting window, right? So in the GoToMeeting window, there is a button called as Start Recording. Okay, so just click on that Start Recording option. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So yesterday we discussed about how to actually design and how to understand what are the different things in the what are the different tools, Power Center tools available, and how to create the folders, and what are the different folders that are available in the Informatica, and how to configure the repository, and all these things we have seen it. So today we'll go over an understanding about the by taking a simple example, how do you implement that in the Informatica. And we already understand that we have an OLTP system, and the OLTP system will consist of different daily transactional tables, daily transaction tables, and we are going to extract the data from OLTP system. We are going to extract the data from OLTP system, and then first we are going to load the data into ODS, and from ODS we are going to load the data into your dimension tables and the fact tables. So these labs will be shared with you, and till yesterday whatever we discussed about, that is about the different list of tables, what we are going to use this for this hands-on or for this project, and how we are going to load the data. So whenever we are loading the data into data warehouse, either we will have a staging area or the temporary area, and we'll have a data warehouse. So you're extracting the data from OLTP. You have all these tables if you're available. So customer, department, EMP, employee, invoice, line item, product, vendor. These are all the daily transaction tables which you have it in the OLTP system. That is your transactional system. And now for what we are going to do is, let's say you can consider in a phase by phase. Let's say your project has two phases, and in the first phase you're going to extract the data from all these OLTP systems and then put it into the ODS, and in the second phase you're going to implement it from the ODS to the data warehouse and this. So the process of extraction of data from the OLTP system, as we understood in the data warehousing concepts, it's a kind of a continuous process. It is not that it is not the one-time activity that you are doing. It is a continuous process. Every time there will be a new data which will be getting added to the OLTP system, you'll always extract the new data or the incremental data what we have discussed. So you're always going to extract the incremental data from OLTP to ODS and from ODS to the data warehouse. That is what we are going to implement. Now assume that there is a OLTP system already and there are the tables. It's not necessary, Malik, like the other day we discussed it, and either a staging area or the ODS, you can keep it, but most of the time we'll have a staging area. You can just consider this as a staging area because every time we truncate and load in this case, so you can just consider this as a staging area, but we just named tables as a ODS, that's it, doesn't matter. So this is a continuous process, a process of extracting the data from OLTP. Yeah, that's a kind of a standard practice you can call it. If at all, if it is required, maybe let's say you have a 90 days data, all those things. If you require, we'll go for ODS, or all the other time, we'll go for a staging area. So you're going to extract the data from OLTP system and then put it into the ODS for a initial phase, and the next phase we are going to do the implementation of extracting the data from ODS and then putting that into a data warehouse. So now let's say we'll take one example at a time. One example at a time. So today example, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you how to migrate the data from oil by taking a single table, how to migrate the data from employee table which is available in the OLTP database to the ODS underscore employee table which is there in the TDBU schema, that is your ODS. So we'll see. Yes, Malik. Last time, when we went through the data warehousing concepts, that time we did discussed about the advantage of the ODS is that so whenever your business wants to analyze the current trends, something like maybe over first 90 days, how the trends are actually changing. Whenever they want to analyze the data, then you require the ODS. Otherwise, you can go for a staging area. Okay, so now I'm going to take one example and let's see how we can migrate the data from one table to the other table. I mean one database to the other database, or OLTP system to the ODS, how we can do it this way. So in order to do all these things, so I will start with my hands-on. So I'm already on the mapping. I'm already in the mapping designer, and I'm going to implement all the mappings and everything in this repository. So this is my working repository. So I'm connecting to this working repository. So if you see, I already have the folders. I already have the folders called as the ODS sales and the EDW sales. So yesterday we have configured and yesterday we have created all the folders and everything, right? So now when you connect, so click on open. When you connect here, you will open the ODS underscore sales. Now I'm all the ODS related workflows. Whichever the workflows that we are creating to extract the data from source to the, all the ODS related workflows which we are creating to load the data into ODS tables, I'm going to create in this folder. Why I have actually named these folders as ODS underscore sales and EDW underscore sales is because we are actually implementing a warehouse for a sales subject area. We are implementing a warehouse for a sales subject area, means your sales people, your sales manager wants to analyze the data on the sales subject area. So that's why I've named it as all the ODS related workflows. I'm going to keep it in the ODS sales. So let's try and implement a lab one by one hands-on lab. So we have total 36 hands-on labs, and we are going to understand each and every lab one by one. So our assumption is that now these are all the tables are already available in both the schemas. One is a SDBU schema, TDBU schema. All these things are already available. So when I am loading the data, I always say that it is a TDBU schema indeed. And in your case, whenever you are loading the data, load into your individual schema. Load into your individual schema, whatever is being created and assigned to you. All those details I'll be sending it to you today, and you can start practicing the things from the once you receive the details on the server. I'll be doing it right away after the class, and then I'll send you all the details for that, and what schema you have to load the data, where you have to create the tables, and for each one of you I'll send the details and you can use this. Now the assumption is that already the source table, source data is present, and in the target we have a target tables is being created, and we don't have a data in the target tables. We don't have a data in the target tables that you have. So now I'm going to load the data from one by one table. So first lab, which talks about, we have a 36 hands-on labs, and first lab talks about how to import the source and how to import the target. So open that hands-on lab. Let's follow one by one step. How to import the source and how to import the target. Let's say you want to you want to extract the data from employee table in the employee table from the OLTP, and then you have to load it. So it says that a repository, whatever you're going to see here, it says that PC underscore course repository. So whatever the repository that you have, you can start using it, and whatever the username and password that is being provided to you, you can start using it. So it might be student XX or whatever your name, what is being provided, and you can start doing the hands-on lab in your folder, right? So connect to the repository. So and then start with this thing. So now what we are going to see here, how to import the source and how to import the target. Basically, how to import the target definition and the source definition in the mapping designer. That is what we are going to understand. Source, we are going to use the employee table as a source to extract the data, and we are going to load the data into target. We are going to load the data into target, that is your ODS underscore employee. ODS underscore employee. So first you need to connect to the repository. So that activity we have already done. So now instead of a PC underscore course repository, I'm just opening. So we have opened the designer. Now connect to this. So how to connect? Double click on this, and then whatever the user ID password that is being provided to you, just enter it and then click on OK. Now you have the folder which you have to log in. So let's say we already discussed, like we are going to work on this folder. To open that folder, right click on it, click on open, click on open. Now everything is provided. So how to import it from the source? How to import it from the source? We have opened the folder, whatever the folder that is being assigned, that you have to start working in. So the next step 4 is talks about open the source analyzer. What is a source analyzer? This is a source analyzer. So open the source analyzer, and now you want to import it from the, there are multiple options. If you want to import the flat file, then you are going to use this. If you want to import a relational table from the database, then you'll use this. If you want to import a file from mainframes, that is a COBOL file, you'll use this. If you want to read the data from XML, you'll use this. Or if you want to import from PeopleSoft, all these things, we will use it. Now, our employee table is available in the source database. Our employee table is available in the database. So we are going to use this option. So when we discussed about the architecture of Informatica on the first day, what did we understand? Your repository service will communicate to the database with the help of ODBC data source, right? So you need to create a ODBC data source to communicate with the source or the target. So unless you have a data source here, you can't connect it. So let's say you are starting the work in your project, and you don't have any data source which is created to communicate with the source database to import the tables. So you don't have anything, but I have a lot of things here. What I'm going to do, to just for a practice purpose, I'm going to delete all of them and then recreate it again. I'm going to delete. So let's say, see here, since I have already what I'm doing, I'm removing all these things to demonstrate how to create all these things for you. So in order to import the source definition, whenever you want to import the source definition from the source database, you need to have a ODBC driver or the DSN. DSN stands for a data source name. DSN stands for a data source name. So you have two types of DSNs. One is a system DSN, another is a user DSN. There is some problem with the system DSN on the 64-bit machines. So we can't just use a system DSN. In that case, you can go for a user DSN. So whenever you want to import the data from source database, you need to create one DSN to use the communicate. So to add the DSN, so how did I come to this screen? So when I went to this import from database, sources, import from database, there is a bubble icon. I mean, there is a dotted option there. You just click on that, it will open up this value. It will open up this Microsoft ODBC Data Source Administrator. Or if you want to get into the screen, there is another way. You can make a note of this if you want. So you can go to the run and then type ODBC AD32. So there is something called as ODBC AD32. So when you type ODBC, it will give you the Microsoft ODBC Administrator. Just click on that, it will open up the same screen. It will open up the same screen whatever is there. Now I want to add a DSN, that is your data source name. So how to add it? Go to the add, and now there are different drivers which will be available to communicate. You have the data direct 6.0, you have Oracle, you have SQL Server driver. So many drivers are available. So data direct 6.0 is an Oracle, Informatica driver. So Informatica, whenever you install Informatica, it will automatically by default, it will get installed. Now, whatever the hands-on that we are implementing, our source database is in the Oracle database, and our target database is also in the Oracle database. So whenever you want to communicate with Oracle database, so you have to select this driver, data direct 6.0 Oracle wire protocol. Suppose let's say my source database is a Sybase, then I have to select this. If suppose let's say if my source database is a Informix, then I have to select this. So likewise, you'll have a different driver for a different database. So in our example, in our hands-on, when we are doing it, it's always we are using it, whatever we are using it is an Oracle database. Source database is Oracle and the target database is Oracle. That's why I'm selecting data direct 6.0 Oracle wire protocol to communicate with the database. Select the driver and then click on finish. So it will open up to enter all these names. So you have a data source name. So I'm naming this data source name as OLTP to communicate with a OLTP system. That's why I'm naming it as a OLTP. Whatever the name that you want, you can give it. There is no restriction. OLTP underscore source, or you just want to give it as a source to import anything, you can use it. And the host name. Host name is nothing but the where the Oracle is actually running, which is the server name. You have to provide the server name. In the real time, the server name will be different. So you have to use the host name. And how to determine that what is the host. Okay. So whenever you install Oracle, they'll provide you the TNS entry. In the real time, they'll provide you the TNS entry, and that TNS entry will be available. The TNS entry will be available in this particular folder. So you can go to app, and whatever the product 11.2.0 DB home 1 network and admin. Okay, this is the location for a tnsnames.ora, or you can search for tnsnames.ora file. So this tnsnames.ora file will tell you what is the host name for a source and what is the host name for a target. Let's say you don't have a host name for a source and target. So you can ask them what is the source database TNS entry and what is the target database TNS entry. Let's say the ORCL is my OLTP and OLAP is my OLAP is my target database. So you have to this ORCL. So I'm just using the ORCL. If you see the host name, you can look at it. This is a local host. Why it is a local host? Because database is installed in my machine. That's why it is a local host. In the real time, it will be the different host name. They'll give you the different host name or the IP address. You have to use that IP address and then the port name and then the service name. So if you don't know what is the host name of the source system, or if you don't know what is the host name of the target, then you need to check with your project colleagues to understand what is the TNS entry of that to create the TSN. Now go here, what is the host that I want to use? That is your local host. That is your local host, and the port number is 1521. And what is the SID? SID is nothing but this one. System identifier. It is called as a system identifier, or the service name. Either you can enter SID or the service name. Anything is fine. So my database is a ORCL, so I'm selecting it. So in case you don't want to enter all these details, you can copy the TNS name file here. And I want to check this connection, whether this connection is working or not. How can I make sure that whatever I have done, the TSN entry is working or not? So this is a test connect. So click on test connects. It will ask you to enter the username and password. What is the username password that we are going to use to connect to the source database? That is, your SDBU is a source database username and SDBU is a password. So whenever you want to access the source tables and anything, you just always use SDBU. So here you're going to use SDBU as a username and SDBU is a password. So just enter it and then click on OK to check whether the connection is working or not. So it says that connection is established. That means you're able to connect to the database by using this DSN and these parameters. Port number is 1521, that also you'll get it from here. Okay. So now you have created a source database DSN, that is a OLTP source. This is the source that I am going to use to import the data. That is import the source definition, right? So now you have created it. So click on OK. Now let's try and import. This is a one-time activity. Whatever the DSN that you are creating, this is a one-time activity that you have to do it. Now the next thing is to select the source. So go to this one and then cancel it. So let's start from the first again. I am in the source analyzer tab. This is the first tab here. You have a lot of tabs here. Make sure that you are in the correct tab, then only the. So if you see, when I'm moving across the tabs, above the header is changing. Header option is changing. So don't get confused again. When you are in the target designer, you don't have a sources button. So the sources button will be available only when you are in the source analyzer. This header will be changing on the top. See here, transformation. Here it says that maplets. Here it says that mapping. So header information is keep getting changed. So you are in the source analyzer. Now you are going to import the source. Sources, import from database. So select the DSN. What is the DSN? OLTP source. And what is the username and password to connect? SDBU. And then the password is also SDBU. Owner name by default it will populate as the same as username. Just connect to the database. Connect to the database. So what does Informatica repository service does is, repository service will query the list of tables which are available in the SDBU schema. So if you expand it, if you go to the tables, see here you have a lot of tables. You have all these tables: customer, department, employee. So which table you want to import? Employee table. So select whatever the table that you want to import and click on OK. So as soon as you click on OK, it will add the definition of employee. When I say definition is nothing but the structure of the employee table. Like you have a list of columns, data types and everything. So click on OK. When you click on OK, so it will just give you it will import the definition of employee table. So do remember, whenever you are importing a definition of the table, that it is not importing the data. It is just importing the structure of the table. It is just importing the structure of the table. It doesn't import the data. It might have 1 lakh record or 1 million record. Informatica is not bothered about the data. I mean, in the designer level, it doesn't import the data as such. So if you see here, now this employee table is being added to your source definition. When you go here onto the sources on the navigator window, expand it. If you see, there is a source which is being added already. So now you have added a source definition. So whenever you want to save the changes, so always use Ctrl S, or you can go to the repository and then save it. So once you save it, what will happen? It will save this to the, where it will get saved. Whenever you are saving it, it will get saved to the repository tables. That day we discussed about it. Repository tables, that 511 tables, whatever we have created, those repository tables will store the definition about your source, target, mapping, maplet, user-defined function, anything, whatever you create in the designer workflow manager, everything will get saved onto those metadata tables. Okay, so now the source definition is being added to the metadata tables. So how should we understand this source? So how can we understand how many columns are there in the table, and what is the primary key, what is the data type of each column, and all those things? Just double click on the source. Just double click on the source. It will open up go to the table. So now here it will tell you what is the table name, OLTP source employee. What is the owner name, SDBU. What is the database type? It will also tell you whether the source is an Oracle table or an SQL Server table or a Teradata table or a Sybase table or a flat file, anything. So it will tell you all these things. Now whatever we have imported is an Oracle table. That's why it is showing the database type as a Oracle. And if you want to, yes, you can manipulate the columns, and provided it should reflect the same as per your database, because it assumes that Informatica assumes that the same number of columns and with the same name is available in the OLTP database. OLTP database. Suppose if you are changing the column name as, instead of first name you are changing it as F name, then it will try to query the employee table using F name. But if you see F name column is not available in the employee table, so it will throw the error. So you should make sure that even if you are manipulating it, you should make sure that the column names, table names, and the data types is as similar as your source definition. If you're manipulating it to the some other value, then it will, I mean, some other value in the sense what I mean, some other column name or something, then it will obviously throw the error. Okay, so you have employee ID, first name, last name, date hired, and the type code. So you have all these values, all these columns. In fact, table will contain all the columns and everything, employee ID, first name, last name, date hired, and the type code. And this is a data type, and this is a precision scale. And it will also tell you if you have any primary keys or foreign keys, it will automatically import all those. If a table has a primary key or if a table has a foreign key, it will automatically import it. Now it says that employee ID is a primary key. If you see here, it is automatically. I never said anything. I mean, it has directly imported the primary key. Yes, you can add a few more columns here, provided, that's what I said. If you have, if your source is having a 5 columns, then you can't add a 7 columns because Informatica will try to query that. You will understand. I mean, if you're adding a new column, so see, the source definition should be same as your source. Suppose, let's say you want to add a new column. Let's say assume that your employee table is being added with a new column, and you want to add a new column. Just click on this to add a new column. Suppose, let's say they have added one more column called as a tax or salary. There is a column called as a salary which is being added in my source database. So I have to, instead of re-importing it, I'm just adding it. That's it. So you have number P, S, and you want to make all these changes. Yes, you can do it something like this, provided this salary column should be available in your source. If this is not available, then there is no point of adding it here because your Informatica will query that. So you can add a new column, you can remove it, all the things can be done by using these options. Whenever you want to add a new column, you can use this. Whenever you want to remove a column, or that is cutting a column, so you can use this. This is for a copy paste. Let's say I want to copy and paste the column. And these arrows are used to move it up and down. So up and down. So this can be done. So that is how you can apply it, and you will come to know like what is the thing that if I didn't get your question, Malik. Yes, obviously. I mean, let's say today your source table might have 5 or 6 columns. In the later, they might increase the number of the columns in the source table. So instead of re-importing the entire thing, you might get this kind of scenario where you have to delete the column on the source, modify the source definition. Let's say it might be the case that employee first name or the date hired, whatever, first time they defined it as a varchar. Later they reverted it as a date. So they changed the data type. So you need to change the data type here, even in the Informatica level. Obviously it will date and varchar are 2 different data types. Yes, we can add directly instead of re-importing. There are 2 ways. If you want to re-import, if you re-import on the database, the columns are added, it will automatically inherit all those changes here, and it will override the definition of it. Or instead of re-importing what you felt, I just want to add 1 column only, you can just add it looking at the definition of your source. Okay, so that's how you add the columns and everything. And there is one more tab next to that is called as a metadata extensions. Metadata extension. So this is something that which we don't use much in the real time. So the metadata extension, which talks about if someone wants to understand, I mean, as a metadata, whatever the metadata that you're actually adding, if somebody wants to understand when this source is being created in Informatica, who has edited it, who has created it, on all these kind of information, if you want to track it, then you can use these metadata extensions. Metadata extension, suppose let's say this is an extension and I want to use created by, who has created it. So I just want to add a value to this. So whenever I create any source definition, I just want to add it. So I just want to add the value saying, so Karthik. So when you say here created by string 256 Karthik. So when you say that this value should be added, I mean this, just want to track who has added this source definition, who has added this, all these things can be done. So suppose if you want to make it reusable. So when you make it as a reusable, that means it will add for every source definition. Whenever you create, it will add it for every source definition. So if you're converting it, so this is a non-readable and it will add it. So I want to add one more thing. Let's say created by and created on. So when it is being created. So let's say this is, yeah, it's a kind of a public, you can call, but literally we don't say that. It's a kind of a reusable, we can say. So now you want to add some other thing called as a string, and you want to make, whenever there is something, you want to add the who has created. Let's say you want to add the system date to this, and then you want to make it. So these are the metadata extension. It is just for our information to add when it is being created, when it is being modified, and all those things, all those details. You can get it from the metadata extension tab. So this metadata